How are
Good
you doing?
morning. Good morning. I think it's morning for everyone. Maybe not everyone, if we have some folks from Spain joining us, but thank you all for joining us, and thank you um, to Local Logic and Restb.ai for inviting me to moderate this webinar today. I'm super excited um, because I've been working for 25 years in real estate, primarily focused in data. And this topic today, I think it is more timely than it's been. We've all sort of accepted that it's all about the data. I'm excited to talk to these guys about how we can supercharge our 2023 strategy using data from each of these companies. I've personally had the opportunity to work with both of these companies in my former role at CoreLogic and continuing on in my role at Presta Team Consulting and some of the other projects I'm working on. So I'm very, very excited to have my guests here today. By way of a brief introduction for the folks who don't know me, I'm Amy Gorse, CEO and managing partner at Presta Team Consulting. And again, very excited to be here today with my friends. We are going to use the Q&A box for Q&A today, so please feel free to type your questions in there. We'll try to get to them throughout the presentation, but for sure at the end, we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. I would like to take the opportunity to let each of my guests introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Lisa Larson. Tell us a little bit about you before we dive in.
Hello. And again, also, I'd like to just thank both Amy and Pierre for inviting us to be a part of this masterclass webinar. Super excited. Full disclosure, my first webinar, so be patient with me. I'll try not to get too nervous. But my name's Lisa Larson. I'm the managing director of North America for Restb.ai. And a big shout out to my team in Barcelona who are watching from the King's Landing conference room. So House of Stark here.
Love it.
I've been in real estate, information, and prop tech for over 20 years. And I just got to say, you know, we've seen a lot of technology over the last, me 20 years, Amy 25 years. When I saw what Restb was doing with the AI, it's just so cool. It's so impactful. And I'm just so happy that I get to be part of the program and part of the team to bring it to North America, to our MLSs and prop tech companies out here. Restb is a leading computer vision solution for real estate. We use artificial intelligence to extract insights from property photos, right? So the interior and exterior, all the features, all the tags, all the architectural style. We process about 1 billion images a month, which is pretty amazing. We're in 30 plus countries. We have one of the fastest, if not the fastest, AI API in the world. And that's super impactful, because when you're talking about the listing input process and being able to upload the listing, the last thing you want to do is slow down the process. And what Restb does is we speed it up. We can analyze a single image in about 300 milliseconds. That's about a third of a second. So we can process 50 to 100 images in about 5 to 7 seconds. We're wicked fast. Our accuracy is unmatched. And we work with everybody from MLSs to brokers, portals. We do a lot of work in the AVM, iBuyer, insurance, mortgage companies, institutional investors, pretty much anybody in prop tech or finance. And we have positioned ourselves to be very agnostic. So we can work with anybody on any platform. And, you know, we just really believe that our company should be able to deliver AI to anybody worldwide within prop tech and have the benefits of our AI. So yeah.
All right. Awesome, Lisa. Thank you. Welcome. We look forward to diving into a little more detail as we move along, but it's exciting to have you over there at Restb.ai as well. I've worked with that team, like I said before, and it's very exciting. Pierre, welcome. You and I have also have a bit of a rich history, and I was always excited about what Local Logic brought to the party in terms of data. So maybe introduce yourself a little bit before we dive
Yeah,
in.
for sure. Hey everyone, I see many friends in the waiting room here. So also 20 years in real estate. Hard to believe it's been that long. Started on the brokerage side, then was at Trulia for 8 years, and at Real Scout for almost 4, and now here at Local Logic for 4. So it's been a really fun journey, seeing the industry, really change from both sides of the table over the past 20 years. Well, Local Logic does, we're a location intelligence company. So what it means to the folks here in the room, that feeling when you're standing on the corner and you're like, oh, what a great neighborhood, what a good vibe, what a good sense of place, like that. We quantify that mathematically. We ingest thousands of data sets across the US and Canada. We have full coverage, and we created up to 18 scores for any location that let you understand like what it's like to be on that street corner. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit more later. But we do work with the entire real estate industry as well. We work with MLSs, portals, brokerages. We also, basically have two sides of the business: a consumer-facing side, which is mostly used by residential real estate, and an analytical financial side, which is mostly leveraged by the commercial real estate. And we even work with AVMs as well. So Restb.ai and us are basically like both looking at the built world through two different lenses, which is really awesome. And together we really give a really complete picture of what a place is like.
Yeah, I love how complementary you two solutions are, and how you can get a full picture. We talked yesterday in our planning call about, kind of between your two data sets, you really can derive a lot of what you need to know about a property to create a listing. And I look forward to chatting more about that. So maybe as we dive in, I love to start with this quote. In the famous words of William Edwards Deming, "In God we trust, but all others must bring data," right? So as we talk about the kind of data each of you bring, and I'm going to stay with you, Pierre, for a moment here.
Sure.
Let's talk a little more in depth about the kinds of data and insights that Local Logic provides, and how those get derived. And while we're doing that, you feel free to start talking. I'm going to bring up a few slides that I thought
Cool.
were super impactful when you sent them over to me when we were doing prep. So
Great.
go ahead and dive in on what kind of data
Yeah.
you're bringing to the party, and I'll bring up a couple slides here that might
Yeah, for
complement
sure,
what
for
we're
sure.
talking about. Perfect.
So look, what's special about Local Logic is one of the special things is that we were founded by urban planners. So they have a different way of looking at the world. They're really trying to understand how to make and build better cities for people, right? And most companies, and even in residential real estate, look at the world like this. You look at the world as zip codes and neighborhoods, and you're trying to market to a zip code or market to a neighborhood. But that's not how Local Logic sees the world. We see the world a little differently. We really look at the streets, the actual streets. So we understand what's happening between any of those two white dots that you see in that little corner. Zoom in, and we have literally thousands of data points that create those 18 scores. So an example of this is like we have a quiet score for any location. We have a grocery score. We have a park score. We have a school score. We have basically under three main buckets, which is the character of the area, the transportation, transit of the area, and the services that are there. And so those categories let somebody who's looking at a home online or looking to invest in a piece of real estate, looking to redevelop a piece of real estate, understand what is the value driver in that location, or why should I care about this place? Like, oh, I want to have a 5-minute drive to the grocery store. I want to have an easy way to drop off my kids. And I also want to be able to go out at night and have a nice dinner. How can you in a split second identify those features without having to scroll through Google Maps, scroll through 20 websites to get it? And that's what Local Logic has unlocked, is really making you understand that location in a split second.
I love that. This really resonated with me. We're in a brand new home. I'm actually in a suburb of Phoenix, in Gilbert. And so we live close to a lot of services, which is really unusual in the suburbs. And that was a priority for us. We live in a rural area in the summertime where there's one restaurant in the town we live in. So when I'm here in Phoenix in the winter, I want to be close to restaurants and things I like. And so this really resonated for me. And I love the idea of really kind of the lifestyle support that gets created through your data. And so, Lisa, I'm going to kind of ask you the same question and the same thing. I'm going to bring up a few slides while you start talking. But give us a more detailed. Your intro was pretty detailed, but go ahead and give us some more detail about the kinds of data that Restb provides and how that's derived. And while you're doing that, again, I'm going to bring up a couple of slides to support you.
Great. So yeah, I mean, at the core of what we do is we're taking something that's very valuable within the real estate transaction process, which is the imagery, right? And what can we learn from the imagery? So everything that we approach within our vertical is, how do we solve a solution? How do we solve a problem? I'm sorry, with a solution. What's the solution for that? And so when we look at a listing photo, for example, what can this picture tell us, right? A picture tells us 1,000 words, but can we use that data to create better, more meaningful solutions and product for MLS, both real estate buyers and sellers, and for the consumers? So we're able to go in and use our detection and our AI to identify, what is the room type? Are we looking at a living room, a bathroom, a kitchen, and so forth? And then we take it a step further and say, okay, what are the features within this property? What are the floors? What are the countertops? What do the ceilings look like? What do the lighting look like? And so forth. And then we're able to layer that data into the MLS database. And I'll kind of talk more on the MLS side of it to allow us to see how we fully leverage this. So one of the things that we've always seen is, what additional data can we layer into the MLS to complete that data set, right? So is there anything else that we could tell you about this property that a buyer would be interested in wanting to know? Whether it's the architectural style, whether it's the entryway, and so forth. So when an agent goes in and uploads a listing in the MLS database, and we work with everybody from CoreLogic to Rapatoni to FBS to Dyna Connections, Black Knight, and so forth, the agent is able to then, in a very short time, upload the listings. We can extract all of the tags. We can immediately fill in those incomplete data fields for the MLS. And then in addition to that, not only are we enriching the database and we use all RESO data dictionary tags, we allow the MLS to also push that downstream. So when you think about the ADA side of things and being able to be compliant for somebody that might have a seeing disability and need screen readers, the MLSs are taking a bold stand and saying, we want to make sure when data is being published for consumers, it also has an ADA component in it to protect the consumers and to protect their membership. And then in addition to that, it also drives tremendous traffic to those consumers' websites. We're cleaning up the data downstream. And it's so impactful, everything that our data can do and the problems that we're able to solve. This obviously is an illustration that you're showing here, where we're also able to export additional data sets that's all based on realtor permission. So the realtor can say, yes, I see that you've brought up all these additional features I otherwise wouldn't have described or tagged. And then they can push that downstream in the data distribution. And the idea is improve the database, create more data out there for consumers to be able to search by, I want to look for an outdoor kitchen, or I want an extra large kitchen island. So it's not only is it cleansing the data, it's creating better search experiences for consumers too.
I love that. And I love this idea that your innovation can help kind of make agents' lives easier while enriching the consumer experience, right? We've talked quite a bit, and I've talked quite a bit with our MLS clients lately about how do we go from what felt really innovative 20 years ago, which was autofill the listing with a public record, right? To create a listing from a photo and a set of rich data like Pierre's bringing to the party as well, so that the agent can really focus on what they're good at, which is marketing and finding a buyer for the property. So I love where the innovation's taking us. I'm excited for the future of listing input, if you will. It always felt like such a chore before, but I think the kind of innovation that you all are bringing is starting to make it sort of exciting to think about what the future of creating a listing and marketing a listing looks like.
We agree 100%. We actually see us pivoting away from this idea that the agent uploads or inputs data and a listing into their MLS database. We look at it more that the agent will just edit and refine it, right?
Yeah.
Because when you put up that address, you have the parcel, you have the public records, you have all the imagery, the agent's just going in and editing it. And something that usually takes 20, 30, 40 minutes should
Mhm.
only take 5 to 6 minutes, including being able to put captions and property descriptions. And so it's really cool because we're seeing a lot of the MLSs enter more of this modern landscape, right?
Yeah.
We just signed a big deal with Toronto, and it was really cool because John D. Michelle was like, the way that we've done business before with interacting with data is dead. This is the
Yeah.
new norm, right? And so
Yeah.
it's so cool seeing the MLS executives get behind that and type of initiative and that type
Mhm.
of perspective on the listing. So
Yeah, such good stuff. Such good stuff. So, Pierre, tell me about some of the ways that your clients are leveraging your data and insights. Like, are they using it to make money? Are they using it to save money? Is it both? Kind of what's the, what's the sort
Yeah.
of, key interesting thing that clients are doing with your data that makes
There are
it.
there are multiple ways to leverage location data, right? Definitely, we have clients who are using our data and analytical models to make a lot of money by purchasing assets and reducing their risk by using our data to analyze those purchases. So that's a very CRE investor level use case. On the consumer side, which really, if you think about us, we're like a B2B2C company. So we work with brokerages and portals who are really their clients, the consumer, right? And so in that world, what we're doing is helping the portal or the brokerage engage that consumer in a new way. Some of the things that we do, actually very similar to what Restb, to what Lisa was saying, we have search filters where a consumer can look at a map and create their own custom heat map on the fly on your brokerage or company site. So they can say, hey, you know what, I'm moving from New York to Arizona and I want to be in your restaurants. Like, I want to be 5 minutes from a grocery store. And in a second, they can check 2 boxes and all of Arizona, frankly, they can zoom in as deep or go as wide as they want, is highlighted for the areas that match their needs. And one of the cool things there is we look at the data, the consumer will expand their starting search by 20%. So they might have said, oh, I want to live in Phoenix. But all of a sudden they're looking at Scottsdale, they're looking at Tempe. They start to expand out to areas that they didn't know were really had the lifestyle that they wanted. And similarly, you can see that use case on the investment side. So to answer the question about make money or save money, there's also just practical things that we do that's just, better use of funds. If you can consolidate your spend on data and also, increase that experience for the consumer, we can help you save money on the cost of integrating all those different services. Also the cost on the map of paying for the map. Sometimes, I have a client who's spending 50 grand a month on map costs alone. This is outside of data. This is not even us. This is just pure Google Map calls. And we can impact a significant part of that when you consider listing pages and the cost that they have on maps. So, and then the practical, at times we can be cheaper than some other alternatives and also deliver a better experience. So I think there's a win-win here for increasing the consumer value prop, which obviously makes more leads, makes your agents happy, makes your brand work, all the way down to literally the brass tacks of like my monthly bills are $200.
It's always good when you can land on both sides of the revenue and expense ledger, right? I can make you money and I can save you money. I think that's especially today. I mean, without question. And that sort of leads us, I think, into my next question. And Lisa, maybe we'll start with you, but I'd love for both of you to answer this, which is, not a secret that the real estate industry in the last couple months is undergoing some adjustments and the change in the market from sort of the craziness, even though the market's probably getting closer to just normal than actually down. I think the perception is that there's definitely a down, we're facing a down market if we're not already in one. And so in a down market, Lisa, does this data even matter? Sort of like, talk to me about, when everything's good, everybody wants to spend money and they're, more than happy to try something new. But in a market like this, what does that look like from your perspective? How much does it matter, or does it matter more?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's interesting to kind of tie into what Pierre was just saying too, where it's almost like you're finding by features, right? I want to find the features in a neighborhood or that street corner. I want to find the property based on these features and attributes. And that's really what we're doing here, is we're giving way more transparency into the type of data that a real live consumer wants. As far as this data and is it important in a down market, I would say even more so. Nowadays, obviously the great reset is happening. No more are we going to see property sit on the market for 6 days, right? We're going to go back into those. How many days on market? 60, 90, 120 days. There's going to be more inventory. So buyers are going to be more selective on what they want. And so how are you going to reset and position yourself to be able to offer to buyers exactly what they want? And are you going to get in front of this idea of providing more data, but not too much data, right? Too much data, but what is the right data? And I'll give you a really good example. Our chief product officer, Nathan, just did a really great use case study with IMRED up in Chicago. And we went toe to toe, our AI database versus their AI database. So what Nathan did was went back and looked at the last 90 days of data that was in IMRED MLS. And then we compared it to what data sets we would have put in there. And I mean, the findings were profound. Sometimes it was 1 in 2,000 times, 1 in 200 times where we were able to provide more data, the type of data that a buyer wants, right? The number one thing that we hear a lot of buyers agents say is, my buyer doesn't know what they want. What if there was a product that would allow your buyer to be able to find exactly what they want? What if there was a product that you can upload a photo and say, this is exactly what I'm looking for, an extra large kitchen island or a specific feature? And then how cool would it be to not only identify that property and show you all the active listings? Now I want you to layer on the local logic and say, is it in the neighborhood that I want to? Right? We are introducing these really cool, interactive, robust user experiences with this type of data. So it's a great time for MLSs to reset and say, how do I reposition, get out in front of this, add more data, add more value? And it's not like it's rocket science what we're doing and what Local Logic is doing, right? We're just making the data available to your end users to enhance the buy-sell process.
Yeah, same question, I think, for you, Pierre. I mean, and Lisa brings up a good point. We've been talking about Search 2.0 for way too long, right? And I think you all are finally bringing the data that makes those kind of things possible. But kind of the same question for you, how does the down market sort of impact, what you're bringing, positively or negatively?
Yeah, look, I think every company has their own balance sheet that they have to look at, right? And there's, and in this kind of market, this is my second major downturn. I was at Trulia from 07, 08 and experienced that, that period. And, every company has to look at their, balance sheet and decide what's the core business that they're building, right? This is why you're seeing companies like Redfin and Zillow and others cut off the iBuying program, is because that's not their core business. This is not the time to take risks. Right. And so the core business ultimately for many people is going to be either investing in buying real estate. So therefore, those folks are very happy right now, sadly, because, they're able to go and acquire assets in, scale that are underpriced right now and move. And what they need is data to help them make better decisions. And we're seeing, I'm just talking from my customer side, tremendous demand on our insights, because we're able to, like, if you can increase your return by 5-10% because you have better data, that is a no-brainer, right? And when you go to the consumer side and you think about the consumer problems, they're in a different boat, right? They are now having to trade off a lot of things in their experiences, maybe to maintain their home, keep their home, to move for a job, et cetera. And so what are they trading off on? And we also, for them, can highlight, hey, look, both these homes are available for $480, right? Great, awesome. Both of them are in the same town, maybe even the same neighborhood. But this one, if you have a job, you'll be there at 9 a.m. and it's 5 minutes to school and 5 minutes to groceries and 10 minutes to, that one for the same price in a second, but, oh, this one makes way more sense for me than this one over here for $480 when all things are considered, especially when you look at suburbs where the homes are pretty much the same. And now it's like, do I live in the cul-de-sac or do I live at the end of the street? And like, what does that mean for me? And I think, data can help that consumer. And so ultimately, it's self-serving to say, in a down market, use our data. I think up or down, our data makes sense, because we're going to impact a decision, and there's always decisions made in a down or an up market. And it's really, can your data help move that faster and help increase the confidence? I think if you can bring speed and confidence like Restb does and we do, that's really the no-brainer question to me about, it always makes sense.
Yeah,
And,
I think the
oh,
speed and
sorry.
assurance is something that's like really, really emerging. I mean, as someone who bought a home in the craziness of early 2022, just all that, those extra things I wished for while I was going through this process, right? Because we lived in Oregon and I was buying a home in Phoenix, and so I think it's really interesting to put yourself in the seat of the consumer these days, and sometimes they don't know what they don't know, right? And so we're having to bring them along on the journey as well. So yeah, Lisa,
I would
sorry.
like to, yeah, to add to that too, for the second part of your question is, in speaking to the MLS folks that are participating on this webinar, which thank you for being here. And I know, Amy, this is very near and dear to your heart, is how are you going to leverage this data? And Pierre actually brought up something great, which is, what data set do you have now? And how can you increase the value of that data by adding these layers? Like, what additional data can Restb put on top of your data now to increase the value on the B2B side, 10%, 20%, right? Whether it's all of our interior, exterior tags, property condition scores, what are you doing with data and distributing it and teeing it up to sell it? And it's been really cool. A lot of the conversations that I've been having over the last 6 months is for the executives who have been in the downturn market before. We use this time to reset, reevaluate. How can we improve on our data, generate more revenue to offset some of that, membership loss of dues we're going to see? And I know, Amy, you're with the RE Distribute, and whether you're going to participate in a program like that, or you use Trestle or Bridge or AMP or your own homegrown, look at the data that we can add on top of what you have and what Local Logic and Pierre has, and then get your data valued and saying, how much now can we truly value this data? I know that there's MLSs like Treb and Hawaii, and there's several MLSs across the country that have been hiring outside companies to come in and value their data, like PwC, like really big accredited firms, to say, we know we're sitting on a gold mine. What is it valued now? And if we add these extra data sets on top of it, what's the value then? And then how do we get out and distribute it, right? How do we sell it to insurance companies and title companies? And who do we partner up with that to do that? Like, that's really this wave that I'm seeing that's happening now. And I'm so excited to see MLSs become more involved in the data and tech side of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue actually into my next question. I always love hearing the stories about clients that have, used data successfully to create some sort of new KPI or metric or something like that. And so tell us about, Lisa, I'll start with you since you were just mentioned a few clients. Tell us about an implementation that you're particularly proud of and what it accomplished for the client. I mean, I'd love for this audience to hear more about real life details. If you can't mention the client name, that's okay. But I like, real life stories that tell the story for the data.
I'd love to. And there are a lot of clients we're not allowed to disclose we work with, right? We have partners of ours that will use, for example, our property condition and property score because they want to enhance their AVM. AVMs have been blind to the condition and quality when it comes to imagery. So we work with a lot of those big companies and appraisal companies and valuation companies to say, okay, this is a portfolio we have. Maybe it's worth $300 million. Can you please go in and analyze the imagery and tell us what the true value of it is? And we've moved the needle, right? We've been able to take a valuation and move it 1-2%. That's significant when you're looking at these big portfolios. 100%. But one of the things that is very near and dear to my heart, because a lot of I was the vice president of an MLS and ran product. And so I'm always really excited to elevate the MLS vertical. And so we just recently, I keep saying it, partnered up with Toronto Real Estate Board with John D. Michelle. And I'm just so excited about the initiative because not only is this an MLS within their platform that we are integrating all of our AI solutions, whether it's MLS match, doing a Pinterest search, or the tagging, photo compliance, we're doing all of that so his members get the benefit, data distribution downstream. The other part of the partnership that we're working with, it's all reselling our data. So he's taking all that data now, and we have a partnership with him, and he is going to represent us in Canada, selling out to all of the banks, right? The appraisal companies, the title companies, all of the data that he knows that they want from our insights. He is getting into that platform, and he's going to benefit tremendously, as are his members. Because why? The MLS is the freshest source of the data, right? We've always known that. But now the MLSs, I think, have finally been given permission by their boards and their committees and their membership, and saying, okay, you guys go out and do what you do best, which is get into this world of technology and data and partner up with who you need to partner up with, so you can bring us more resources and technology and tools, so we could do our job to the best of our ability too. And so I'm just so excited to see MLSs getting into this data distribution world and using that to their benefit to help them grow and scale. It's going to look a lot different in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, right? We always
sure
talk
is.
about
I'm ready. I feel like we've been talking about it for a while, but it takes a while for us to refactor our systems to support all the new stuff. So I'm super excited for what y'all are bringing. Pierre, same question. I mean, I love hearing stories about client successes. So tell us about an implementation that your team's particularly proud of, and how it helped the client.
Yeah, I'll try to go over a couple different versions and try to keep it efficient. But one of our oldest clients is Centris, actually, which is one of the largest MLSs up here in Canada. And we're fully integrated into their consumer front end through Constellation. I'm sorry, that's their own front end, and then which they manage themselves. So we're in the consumer facing front end, and we're in their back end, which is CoreLogic, right? So we're in Matrix, and we actually also work in the US, and we just launched with Black Knight in the US as well. So we're fully available in Black Knight and in CoreLogic, and it's been a huge value to them, because now the consumers are able to use those tools, but also the agents in the MLS are able to use those tools on the agent side. And so they can be as informed as a consumer and use the same tools that the consumer uses to help them find a location that best suits their needs. On the portal side, Redfin uses our data for SEO content. We work with Zumper for location data on their listings. We work with several other portals like Rental Beast and even other integrations where we're able to provide that value to the consumers. And for them, they get huge value on the conversion, on the traffic, et cetera. And then on the brokerage side, we work with CB Bain in Seattle, and they've loved it. It's been fantastic for them. That's a partnership with Delta Media Group. We do also work with everybody, pretty much inside real estate, fully integrated. Well, if you're an inside real estate agent, you can just go to the marketplace, check a box, and LocalLogic is live on your site. And so we've done a lot really quietly in the background, because we integrate seamlessly with all these providers. And so their brokerages, their clients, their consumers are able to leverage all this data and really impact everything from traffic, top of line traffic. We've seen increases of like 10 to 15% new traffic coming in. We've seen conversion rates as high as 36%. Royal LePage, one of our oldest clients, was one of the first big brokerages to go with us live over 6 years ago, and the impact on their conversion rate alone was just been tremendous for them, and that's actually how we got into inside real estate eventually. So like all of these relationships we've had for years, we've kept. I think that's also a big testament, and we grow with them. So I think I'm thrilled when our customers win, because we win. And the last one I'll share is the investment one. I can't say names also, but we have an investor who buys all across the US, and they don't purchase a property without running our algorithm across it, because they've determined that certain scores that we have that they have put into their model are directly related to the outcomes that they want to pursue. And so, it's great to hear that kind of stuff. And we're excited because next year we'll have some public information to share about this. And we'll
love that.
Do some white papers and case studies and sort of share this more with the world. So we're really looking forward to that.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, congratulations to both of you. You both had recent announcements about strategic partnerships that are really significant. Pierre, you and LocalLogic with the Black Knight announcement, I think is very exciting. Lisa, you've talked a little bit about the TREB announcement as well. So congratulations to both of you on that. We did get a question, about what platforms you're integrated with. I think you've both sort of touched on that a little bit, but I know in talking to you, it sounds like you all are pretty platform agnostic. So Lisa, maybe just talk a little bit about your partnerships that are out there, and how someone would integrate with you.
Sure. Again, for us, we want to be able to put our technology and integrate it into any platform, whether it's on the back end or the front end. So this year, one of my main goals and what my CEO and the founders of our organization wanted me to do was to put those partnerships together with all the big MLS vendors, right? So we've been able to, CoreLogic was the first one because that was because of you, Amy. Thank you.
Yeah, ditto.
It was my pleasure. Yeah, these two deals I did at CoreLogic were two that I was most proud of. So it's exciting for me to have this thing come full circle.
Well, thank you. It was super impactful for us. And, once we integrate into an MLS platform, we keep coming out with new products. Like, so when we started with you, for example, we started with the photo compliance, which, make sure that there's no violations, there's no watermarks and so forth. And inside those photos. And now since then, we've added tags, we've added our new product, MLS Match. We continue to add more products. So once we get into a platform, the idea is to continue to grow. And, we have agreements now in place with Rapatoni. We've been working with FBS for a very long time, working on continuing to grow that platform, with Dyna Connections, with AMP and Stratus, which we're very excited about. We are in the final stages of some contracts with some of the other big MLS vendors. I'm sure you guys can do the math on it, but I'm hoping by the end of this year, we will have everybody wrapped up, and then including homegrown, right? So not only do we work with MLSs through their vendors, we can also work with you if you have a homegrown system. And nowadays it's so, it's like MLS platform of choice. It's so we can go into an MLS, like we launched in Miami, and Miami has Matrix, they have Rapatoni, and they have Remind. And so for us, we look at it like, if you have multiple platforms, that's fine. Whatever the point of entry comes in, we can distribute those tags to each one of those platforms and make it very easy for the MLSs to want to work with us and be very cost effective as well. And so it's been fun working with our partners because we just work alongside with their sales reps. They bring us in as the AI product expert. We do the demos, or sometimes the MLSs will come to us and ask us to do the demos too. We're super flexible on how we can work. And then, of course, we're starting to get more into the consumer facing side of MLSs too, which is great to see MLSs now being given permission to be able to have consumer facing sites as well. So yeah, we're just all over the place.
That's awesome.
We're very excited about that.
Pierre, you've already mentioned a few high profile partners you work with, but I also remember from our days of kind of due diligence with you for a partnership that you have a pretty robust API. So maybe just talk a little bit about, both how you support partnerships, but kind of how you're flexible in terms of integration.
Yeah, for sure. No, APIs are, they're table stakes, right? You can't just come to a company and say, here, put this NASCAR widget into your experience. And so we're very much API forward, and we make it really easy to integrate. So, I mean, if I went through 15 customer sites, or integrations, they're all unique and different. And that's an option. There's also people who just want to have it easy and just, go and run with it. So I think, having APIs, having flexibility, being able to be, just a good partner and matching the needs of that client is really crucial. And actually, I think somebody had a question about data, which I'll just talk about for a second and just mention.
Perfect.
From our side, we don't collect any personally identifiable information from anybody. And so, the things that we look at is the community, the outside the four walls kind of aspect of the asset. And we understand what's happening, in the search side of it, but we don't collect any personally identifiable information or sell it, actually. So,
yeah, great. Yeah. The question, just to clarify for the audience, came from one of our attendees, was how does selling or partnering of MLS data maintain and respect the privacy of the users and the data that these systems generate? And I think that's really important, that we're talking about, kind of features and characteristics of a neighborhood or features and characteristics of a property, as opposed to personally identifiable information, which is a little bit more of a sticky wicket there. So
Yeah,
thanks
if
for
I can
that.
add to
Lisa,
that too,
yeah.
we store no data. We use the RESTful API, right? And so at the most, the data enters our system for 10 minutes, 15 at the maximum. We're able to extract and tag the imagery and we push it along. We store no data. We sell no one's data. We're very, very, strict about that. So
that's great. That's great. And I guess another thing, speaking of data and working with data and acquiring data, Pierre, you talked a little bit about kind of folks' data strategy and how they might want to consolidate their strategy and things like that. Tell me from your perspective, because you're both industry veterans. I certainly have my opinions on this too, but what should the industry, whether it's an MLS or a broker or a portal, think about when they're acquiring data or working with data in terms of integrity and longevity and things like that? So I'll start with you, Pierre, but what should we be thinking about, or what kind of questions should they be asking that maybe they don't know to ask?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think the source of data is always good to know, frequency of updates, right? Ownership rights, and all these things should be spelled out black and white in these agreements, right? Like, is there any data going two ways? Is it one way? I think what Lisa just said is a great example of that, right? Like, they're only holding MLS data for 15 minutes. We don't touch listing data at all. We don't even touch it. We only receive a lat long and send back information as an example, right? So like, it really depends on, but if you're talking to general data partners, those are the things that you want to look at. I think in some cases you want to understand the provenance of the company, where they come from, what their goals and motivations are. I think these are all just standard things, but I think understanding the business that they're trying to build really helps understand, like, where they're headed, right? And we clearly are a location intelligence company. To us, location is everything. Everything outside the four walls is what matters, and that's where we sit, right? And we are really happy to become the masters of that and really bring that expertise to our clients. And lastly, I think is really companies that are able to roll with you, right? Like, I think Lisa gave great examples with having multiple integration partners and being API forward and these kinds of things. This industry has been plagued by garden walls and like, oh, we don't play with that company, they don't integrate, that is over. Those days are over, and it's really clear. And so I think making sure that you're not playing with somebody in that environment, that they, if you switch vendors, you don't lose your services. If you are, these are things that to me I think are table stakes, and having good contract terms that allow you to be flexible in your business. So I think those are the key things that I always looked at, bought, and also when I sell, the same thing.
Yeah, I would add to something that's sometimes a little harder to quantify unless you have some experience in the industry, which is the reputation of the teams for supporting the product and sitting down with you and identifying the right solutions. I know in working with each of your teams that we spent a considerable amount of time trying to figure out what a premium experience inside these highly customizable applications is, right? And so, Pierre, spent a lot of time with your team trying to figure out how this would work the best, in Matrix or in the Client Cloud portal. Same, Lisa, with your team, Listing Data Checker, was a well-used product at CoreLogic, but certainly had some of its own limitations, and the enhancements that Restb brought through a lot of ideas that came from your teams is really something that took, 1 + 1 and made it 4. And so I think, while it's hard to quantify, I always recommend to folks, hey, when you're looking for a data provider, the cheapest isn't always the best, right? And so, I just kind of like to point that out. And I want to remind folks, feel free to use the Q&A to submit your questions. And we're kind of starting to wind down here, but I want to make sure that I give you both the opportunity to kind of talk about where you're headed. 2023 is around the corner. What does that roadmap look like for you? What are you all thinking about in terms of what's next? And so Lisa, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thank you. And if I could just add a little bit to that last question that you had, whenever we work with a partner, even if we do it in tandem with one of our MLS vendor partners, we still have open communication with that MLS customer. We open Slack channels. And so I think when those MLSs get a chance to experience how hands-on we are, we're very engineer and developer heavy. We have a very talented team that loves what they do. When we launched in Miami, for example, Bill Cole said, I knew you said it was fast and accurate, but this is wicked. And your team responds immediately. And like, that's a modern tech company for you, right?
Yes.
We're very responsive. We believe in creating win-wins, to Pierre's point, because if you do go to another platform or you add a new platform or a new product, we want to be a part of that solution, right? And so it's very important that we have that ongoing repertoire and relationship with the MLS, in addition to the other partners involved with whatever platform we use. And then as far as where we're going, you know, I kind of talked on it a little bit in the sense of MLSs really getting out in front of their data and how are you going to leverage it and how are you going to generate revenue. And we've always talked about this idea of like non-member dues and how are, like, this is really happening, right? And so I encourage anybody on this call, reach out to Amy. I know that you're doing some really great stuff with Redistribute, and Pierre, and reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you go down that path of distributing your data and what additional data we can put on it. And not only do we put the tags on it, just so everyone's clear, we also have built our own proprietary property condition, property score model. That's massive. Nobody has this. And for us to deliver this to MLSs, to be able to go out there and add that to your data set is a huge win for you. Please reach out to me or anybody on my team. We would be more than happy to set up a demo and show you what that looks like. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised on what the ROI and return is for you guys.
Yeah, that's so great. I think it's exciting work that you guys are doing. Pierre, I'm going to ask you the same question, but we did get a question from the audience and it looks like it's targeted at you. So the question is, do you offer transportation costs, either financial or greenhouse gases, by transportation mode, car, bike, transit, etc., to further assist the different personal and societal impacts of a site? Great question.
Yeah,
so I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll answer that after I do the first part. So in terms of what's coming next, this question is right in that wheelhouse. We just launched our wellness score, which is a new way to look at location, where we're really understanding like healthy food, activities like, gyms and fitness and parks and, the things that contribute to it, especially, post COVID, this became very apparent for everybody that your home was really much more than a home now. Really, the area, it really mattered tremendously more than before, because if you were stuck in your house or you're working from home, you now needed to get a quick access to things, and, taking a quick walk during a meeting, it became the thing that people did to stay in shape and to not be stuck in their house. And so now if you lived in a neighborhood that wasn't walkable and didn't have a good stuff to walk through, you now really had a crappy walk. And so on the CRE sort of high level, like investor or even, retail investor, this question really, is pointed towards there with regards to transportation costs or greenhouse gases. We absolutely are looking at the components that involved, the environmental factors for an area, everything from commute and transportation to the reduction of greenhouse gases. And there's different technical things to talk about here. So scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions and things like that. And there's a lot of ways to slice that. I think that as we go forward here, what we're going to be focused on, so no, we don't have the costs. We don't have the costs today, but we may have something along the lines of greenhouse gas emissions or things like that as we go towards the future here. But what's definitely in the near future is looking at, since we've been doing this now for almost 7 years and quantifying location across the US and Canada, we can now start to build predictive models as to where locations are going and how locations are changing, and really start to, do things that bring more value to the space and are more indicative. If you want to find a deal, and you're trying to find a spot that maybe is on the upswing or that's changing, or that maybe more restaurants are coming in, or there's more, transit coming in. How do you spot those things as a consumer or as an investor so that you can make those decisions with that information too? So I think there's a lot of opportunity here still for location, and we're really looking at that. And I think understanding, we've already done this work, but really pushing the envelope on quantifying right? Like the
Mhm.
value of location. Like we know, everybody knows that location is everything in real estate, location, location, location. And if you take an Upper East Side condo and put it into the countryside, the price is going to change. Like we all understand that intuitively, but what is it? Like, what is the number for the quiet, for the park,
Yeah.
for the sidewalk, for the parking? Like, what is the value, the financial model to that? And we are really honing in on this. And I think that'll be a tremendous new thing that we'll have to bring out to the space over the next few months.
Yeah, I think it's super fascinating too to watch kind of how that changes over time, right? I'm in an older neighborhood, but literally kind of across the road from where all the growth is happening, right? And so something that was a farm yesterday is, you know, a new mall, a new outdoor mall the next day. So I think the kind of data you guys are bringing to help people understand exactly what you're saying, sort of those emerging markets or new popularity, things like that is super, super, super interesting.
You know, something else I can kind of add to it is we've recently been asked to analyze a pretty substantial database where we can go in and identify how green is this property, right? Which is really cool because when the current administration passed down a ruling, I want to say it was like 6 months ago, that said, if you reach a certain score, you're going to get a 0.5 point off your interest rate. That's impactful, especially at this time that we're seeing interest rates coming through. So to talk on the green and how can our technology help us become better human beings, and how can we use this technology to measure the type of properties or neighborhoods that we want to move into, and then what are the benefits that we're getting in addition to that, whether it be, you have a better neighborhood because it's green or a better walk score, or you got a discount on your interest rate because you bought a house that was more energy efficient. These are all amazing ways that this data is really helping to elevate prop tech across the board. So we were saying if Local Logic and Restb had a baby, it would be the perfect listing and neighborhood.
That's true. It's true. Lisa, while I have you, we did get a question from the audience, and it's directed at you, which is, what is that property condition score? Help us understand a little bit about that.
Sure. We've worked with, and our chief product officer has really been heading this up, where we've worked with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we've used the traditional C1, C6, right? Q1, Q6 property condition score. I think I had a couple slides there if you want to pull those up, that we're able to go in and analyze a property and say, based on these photos, right? What is the condition that is coming in on the output? What is the quality of it? Is it despair? Is it poor? Is it average, good, excellent? In addition to that, we've been able to combine both the quality and the condition score. We've built our own algorithm, which we call the R1, R6, and we're able to, for the first time, show an AVM valuation based on imagery. That's never been done before. And it's interesting because this speaks to whether it's an appraisal, the desktop appraisals that are coming in play. It prevents an inspector having to go back again multiple times, but it really also truly evaluates the condition of the property and what the true value should be. And also what I find to be really amazing about this is you're seeing a lot of the investors coming in and they have a sweet spot. So they're able to say, okay, if the property is about a 2.8 to about a 3.2, that's the lane where we want to get in, and we want to be able to invest into this property. And whether we're going to turn it into a short-term rental, a long-term rental, how are we going to put this in our portfolio? And just to be clear, there are companies out here that are consuming this data from us, and they are quietly mapping the entire country. They want to know what the condition and quality of every single property is in the United States. This is like so huge to be able to have access to this. And in addition, it allows somebody to come in and look at a property, not only just on the image level, but on the property level. I think there might be another slide in there that'll show, we can even tell you if 1 or 2 of the rooms have been remodeled, but the other ones haven't, right? So we can look at it not only from an individual image level, but then we can also give you what the property score is on it too. This, and I love, Pierre, that you guys are doing this, where you're doing your ratings in the neighborhoods, and where does that fall on the rating spectrum? The same thing is happening with this on the property score. So we really are in line with how we're working together and understanding that this is the new norm. This is what, the REITs, the Blackstones of the world's want. This is what the B of A's want, the Wells Fargo's want. So anybody that works with AVMs that's on this call, please reach out to us. We would be more than happy to show you how this would work with your personal AVM.
Yeah, that's great. Anything too late to classify? Y'all know I could talk about data all day, but I know we're coming close to our hour here. So Pierre, I'll give you 1 minute, and Lisa, you one more minute. Just sort of too late to classify here that you want this audience to know more of.
Yeah, well, I think just to tee off the last point too, we have a new UI coming out this year for the consumer facing side, which is really bringing this to the next level and bringing heat maps to the listing page and bringing a lot of information to the listing page, and most importantly, context. So what you just talked about, we'll show you that this home is, like, let's say, an 8 for walkability. The neighborhood is a 5 for walkability, and the average for this whole city is a 7. So therefore, this home sits in the most walkable spots in the city and in the neighborhood. So that's the kind of thing that we're bringing to the listing page right now in the next year, and part of our new UI. It's really going to continue to elevate the understanding of location and how people can interact with that. And yeah, we're excited to talk to anybody, any ideas, anything, new stuff to do. We love, working with our partners, and are excited to enter 2023 with a whole new slew of folks on board.
That's exciting. Good stuff. Lisa, how about you? Anything I forgot to ask?
I mean,
thank
you. You've done such a great job. Like, this has been really cool. And like you, I can talk data for forever. I think, obviously everybody that's on this call understands that we are entering into a reset. What data do you have now? How do you want to enhance it? How do you want to improve it? How can you better leverage it? We're here to work with you. If you want to reach out to us just to come in and just, give you an overview of what we can do, look in your systems and show you how we can elevate your systems or improve upon it and improve on the value. We would love to work with you and talk with you.
That's awesome. I do hope people will reach out to you. I think you both have really fascinating and modern solutions here, and want to thank you both again for inviting me. We do have one last question I'm gonna read.
That's a great one. I actually like this question a lot.
If there's a poor home score, can this negatively impact sellers that have not updated their properties?
I can take this, I think, for a second. I think I can answer for both of us. The scores they're not really good or bad. They're the reality. If you put 10 photos of a house needs to be gutted, there's 10 photos of a house that need to be gutted. Like, this is nothing to hide here, right? And if a neighborhood is quiet, that's not bad. If a neighborhood is loud, that's not bad either. What it just is, right? And so either I want to live somewhere loud or I want to live somewhere quiet. And so I think, no, I don't think there's any negative impact by a poor score. Actually, for others, that might be the exact reason why the house is for sale and why they want to buy it. Same thing for myself. So no, I really don't think there's anything. Now, agents always freak out when there is a score on a home, but I think there's a difference between a score that's like making a decision for someone and a score that's informing them of something that's really there. Like, it's right there.
I agree.
You're making it easy.
And I think kind of this era of consumer transparency, sort of that ship sailed on not disclosing the obvious. And to your point, Pierre, you can look at a kitchen and see that the cabinets are from 1990s. I happen to own some right now that are coming out, right? So I love the idea of kind of consumer transparency above all else too.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that, the whole idea for us and entering into that specific product or vertical, it really is to remove the bias, right? We want to remove the bias from any property. It doesn't matter what zip code you're in, what race, religion, creed. We've been working with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're actually going to even rename some of the terms that they use. They've asked us to even come in, and it was actually a ruling that we have to remove religious objects from any photo, in the sense that a property is a property. And if it meets the needs for whatever reason you're buying that property, we want to be able to give that to you and remove any bias from it. And so I'll leave you guys with this. On my Instagram, my bio actually says, you know, I went to get a loan, and in the space, they asked what the race, and I put human in that. And that has been my bio for like as long as Instagram's been around. It's a Beastie Boy quote, actually. That's how we're using our data, is we are creating better experiences and removing the bias from that. And that really is wholeheartedly our intention.
I cannot think of a better way to end it. I super appreciate both of you and wish you much success in 2023 if we don't see each other before then. And thank you again for inviting me to moderate this. I think it's really good stuff.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.